I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
This episode is brought to you by TaxAct. Don't do your taxes alone. Join TaxAct's National Admin Night. Admin nights are social gatherings for getting through your to-do list. So get ready for a night of fun, finding deductions, and filing taxes with TaxAct, where you can file your federal and state return for just $49 through April 8. Let's get together and get them over with. Visit taxact.com/admin-night for details.
There were more than 100 languages represented on the walls of the Sikh, because you can see all these different languages and all these different signs of other civilizations that pass through. It's got some incredible kind of rock cut tombs. So you can visit these Nabatean sites at Hegra on a guided tour with one of these female storytellers who come from locally. So many stories to tell. Archaeologists are working there. There are new discoveries almost every day.
Happy New Year, my friend. I'm so excited to bring you this one, as you heard at the top. That is just one of 7 must-visit destinations for the coming year that you're going to get in today's episode. I want to give you a jump on the travel planning you're doing for the coming year with one of the most experienced voices in the travel industry. We've got Lyn Hughes back on the show. She is with Wanderlust Magazine. It's the UK's leading travel publication. She launched it back in 1993, and she's been traveling like crazy for decades. And she's personally visited all of the places that you're going to hear on her list today within the last year or two. And she's also bringing these decades of travel experience to explain why each destination deserves your attention in the coming years. It's not just a random list. We need the why. So you're going to discover 7 remarkable destinations spanning 4 continents, including a legendary 660-kilometer dirt road through one of Earth's last great wilderness areas. And this road might be paved within the next 5 years. So big reason why that's on the list. A wildlife encounter like none other, as you heard in the clip at the top, a UNESCO site in a country that only opened to tourism recently. And on top of all this, you're going to get expert travel tips if you actually want to visit these spots. So whether you're planning your coming year of travel or just dreaming about some future adventures, this episode is going to give you some destination advice from someone who's dedicated their life to discovering some of the world's most authentic travel experiences. Let's dive in, buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. Hope your year is off to a great start. So excited to kick off another year here at the Zero to Travel podcast. Thank you. I'll just take this moment to say thank you for being a part of this listening community. And I invite you to get in touch. I mean, if you want to keep in touch off the pod and get more travel goodies, you can always sign up for our free newsletter at zerototravel.com/newsletter, or you can just drop me an email. Jason@zerototravel.com is the email address. And I love a good destination roundup. And I think with audio, I mean, you can read different lists on the internet. We're going to link up to what ended up being the final list for Wanderlust Magazine. By the way, you can find them over at wanderlustmagazine.com. But this episode features Lyn's personal list, and I'm excited to share it because she has so much experience, and I do think it's important, the why behind visiting these destinations. You can read through a lot of these different lists online, but why should some of these destinations be prioritized? Why is there urgency to visit some of them? Why should you go now in the coming year or in the very near future? And that's what we're honing in on with this list here. On the outro, after the interview, I'll share the one from this list that really captured my attention, along with a quote to pair with that. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Lyn Hughes. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on the other side, my friend. Cheers. I'm so excited to get the jump on destinations to visit in 2026, which we're always trying to do here on the pod. We're going to talk about this list you're going to hear in a moment. But first, I have to just say, Lyn Hughes from Wanderlust Magazine, welcome back to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. Good to see you.
Oh, hi, Jason. You look so well. Oh, gosh. And I cannot believe that it's been a whole year since we last spoke. Incredible.
I can't believe it either. It's kind of crazy. And here we are doing it. I mean, I'm a sucker for these destination lists. I think there's, there could be a lot of value in them. It gives you some ideas for places you want to see, might get some things on the radar that you hadn't thought about before. And I know like every publication publishes these types of lists, in the travel media world. But I mean, I find, by the way, you're going to find the final list. You're going to hear the final list today. Lyn is part of a team compiling this list, but I'm always an eager beaver. Like I want to try to get the recommendations before everybody else does. So some of these destinations, may end up on the list. Some of them not. Some of them are maybe Lyn's fighting for them behind the scenes. Who knows? But she's been to these places in the last year or two. And so either way, they're her personal recommendations for places to see in 2026. And Lyn, I mean, you have a ton of travel experience. I mean, we did talk about your story quite a bit in the last one. So we'll link up to that. But if you just want to kind of, for people hearing your name for the first time, give them like the elevator pitch on your travel life.
Right. Well,
which is quite extensive.
Well, yes. Although people still often say to me, "Is there any way you haven't been yet?" I was like, "Yes, so many places." But no, essentially, I was myself and my late husband were really, really keen travellers, and in our sort of 20s into our early 30s. And we were finding it harder and harder to settle back into, what was called real life. We didn't consider it real life every time we got back from a big trip. So on one particular trip, on a flight to South America, we had this, we started talking about travel magazines and how there were no travel magazines. And this is back in the early 1990s. And by the time we got off that plane, we'd schemed out our ideal travel magazine. We were traveling so light, we hadn't got any paper or anything. So we did it on, we made notes on the back of the sick bag. Remember, you used to get the sick bag always on planes. I think we had to borrow a pen off a steward or stewardess. And we came up with this idea for a magazine, and we came up straight away with the name for it, that it should be Wanderlust, which wasn't a commonly used word back then, but we knew it. And it was a kind of, it was one of those things that if you knew the word, if you knew, you knew. If somebody said they had Wanderlust, you knew exactly what they meant and that they were your sort of person. So we called it Wanderlust, and we launched in 1993. And so here we are, 32 years later. This month, where the first issue came out in late 1993. So we're 32 years on. The business has obviously really grown. It's the market leader travel magazine in the UK. But of course, we've also got website, wanderlustmagazine.com. We've got our own podcast, Wanderlust Off the Page. Lots and lots of things that we do. And and we've got a much bigger team. I don't actually own or run the business anymore, but I'm a key part of it. And so, yes, and when I go traveling, which isn't as often as people think. But I do obviously try to go to places that have got a real reason for going, got something very special about them, something very different about them. And I particularly love, I think I often say to people that I love wilderness, I love wildlife, I love wine, but just as well, I love undiscovered cities and everything else as well. So yeah, just to sum us up, and the type of person that we're aimed at, we've just come up with a new tagline, which is authentic, meaningful, responsible travel, which I think kind of sums up what we're about. We're about those authentic experiences, and what is absolutely the real authentic story somewhere. And we believe in travel being meaningful, that it really does mean something to you, even perhaps transform you. And responsible, we should all take responsibility these days for our travels as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing, because, getting your personal context on what you enjoy and how you view travel, and then also the sort of the ethos, the values behind Wanderlust and the new tagline. And, that's all the stuff that you've been pushing out there anyway, in terms of content. I mean, I get the magazine. I love what you guys put out there. So that was why I wanted to have you specifically on. You have so much travel experience that you are able to kind of curate in a different way than perhaps somebody that hasn't been traveling for so long. And you've also been covering travel as a journalist. So it's pretty interesting. I'm excited to hear your list. Before we dive into it, because I think you have 7 here today. And by the way, Wanderlust Good to Go list will be out in January. Like we said, this isn't exactly the list here, but you can go check out what the final list is over at wanderlustmagazine.com.
That's right. There's much debate going on, as you can imagine, amongst the team at the moment. So many ideas flying around. And so I would hate to preempt that. But anywhere I mentioned today, it's all content that we will be covering, or have recently covered, or will be covering anyway. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, how do you define authentic? Is one of those tricky words, because some people lean into it, some people shy away from it, because how can you really say something is authentic and it's not what is authentic? And I know maybe it's tricky. I'm putting you in a tricky spot here, but when you guys get behind that word authentic, or when you think about it, what does it mean to you in terms of how it relates to travel?
I think it's trying to find that real essence of a destination, the real USPs of a destination. And I think that's particularly important in a world that in some ways can be increasingly homogenized. Because obviously you can go almost anywhere in the world now and there'll be a McDonald's and a Starbucks. And so it's finding that true essence of a country and of its culture and of its people. And it is celebrating that culture and those people. And so we don't tend to cover things like, theme parks, these fantasy worlds. We don't cover golf. We're not treating the world as this big park for your own amusement. What we are after is, if we're going to a country, like a couple I've probably mentioned today, Ecuador, Guyana, parts of Australia, it's what it is, what's unique there, who are the people, and what are their values, and what are their traditions, and what is life for them now. And as I say, we want to celebrate that. We want to celebrate their culture, their landscapes, their wildlife, everything that is special about that place. And if we're writing about cuisine, like food and drink has become increasingly important, of course. But rather than focus on somewhere with international cuisine, we would be writing about the traditional dishes and about the local food scene, and and the stories behind that. So that would just be an example. Yeah.
Okay, now that's great. I am going to follow up this list, by the way. We're going to dive into it in a minute, but I'm going to ask you about some of the travel trends, role of AI, some of those types of things. As each year goes by, the technology is moving so quickly, and you've been around the travel industry for so long and been a traveler for so long that I wanted to get your forecasts on some of the maybe things that we might see in 2026 or sooner than later that perhaps we're not aware of. So just earmark that. I just want you to kind of get your subconscious doing on that. But let's dive in to this list. We have the framing for it now, and I would love to hear. I don't know if you have this ranked. You're like number 7 to number 1.
No, definitely not.
Kinda...
And like I say, I would end up in hot water because we don't with the list anyway. All right.
No. Well, let's get to Wanderlust flowing. Give us one. Give us your first one.
Well, why don't we start with Ecuador and the Galapagos? Because as I mentioned, Wanderlust was thought up, conceived on a flight to Ecuador back in the early 1990s. And this year is actually the 40th year of the Galapagos being a actual marine reserve, being protected. And it is, of course, the ultimate bucket list destination for many people. In our Wanderlust Travel Awards that we held a couple of weeks ago, it won top island or islands worldwide. And that is a vote from our readers. It's Reader Travel Awards. So absolutely special place, as I'm sure you know. Every island is different and it's got a different set of wildlife. It is, of course, where Darwin is believed to have certainly influenced him coming up with his theories. And so amongst the special wildlife it's got so many species of giant wild tortoise. It's got penguins, even though it's on the equator. And you could go swimming with penguins. It's got all sorts of birds. The finches it was famous for, that Darwin noted how different they were on different islands. But perhaps the ones that everybody falls in love with when they're there are the blue-footed boobies, who are comical. They're so not afraid of humans that as you walk along trails, you shouldn't go off trail, obviously, but as you walk along trails, they might be right by your feet. They might sort of go past you, waddle along past you with these wonderful blue feet. And they do a courting ritual, Dance of the Blue Boobies, that is just, it's so gorgeous and funny. And depending when you're there, there's quite a good chance that you can see that. Everybody falls in love with them. So the Galapagos is super, super special and deserves to be on the bucket list. I've been lucky enough to go 4 times, and I want to go again. It's just magical. You never get bored of it. But can I say something about Ecuador more broadly? Because I find it so disappointing when people are going to the Galapagos and they combine it with either with somewhere else, for instance, in South America, such as Peru, which, wonderful country. But I have to ask them, why aren't they going to mainland Ecuador? The country is itself just packed with wonder, and it is so diverse. It's got a lot of diversity in a relatively small area. So they talk about the 4 worlds of Ecuador. There's the Galapagos, obviously. The mainland's got its own coast, which is very little explored. And so obviously that's somewhere that's real kind of under-discovered. It's got the Andes running through the heart of it. And that's even so it's got what's called the Avenue of volcanoes all through the center, the heart. Wonderful colonial towns, incredible markets, lots of different indigenous groups of people who you can get to know, and you can do homestays. So that in itself is worth a stay. And then you've also got Amazonia area where you can stay in eco lodges, or you can stay on riverboats. And you've got things like, again, a whole range of the Amazon type wildlife, and, you can fish for piranhas, you know, you kill dolphins in some places, all sorts of incredible wildlife, as well as, again, you know, just getting an insight into the peoples who live in the Amazon area. I could go on and on. There's cloud forest, which a lot of people don't know about, which is another type of habitat. Wonderful hiking, wonderful horse riding, and then so much art and culture as well in the cities. So it really deserves to be better known. And, you know, I don't understand why more people don't go to it.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop. Now, back to the show. Love it. Okay. So yes, that's like, you get a bonus recommendation in there. It's like, don't just touch on the Galapagos. You also have to visit mainland Ecuador for all those reasons. And, you know, I had one question before we move on to the next destination, because, you know, when the wanderlust is flowing, I feel like before you dive into research, before you really know a place and you're kind of brainstorming where to go, some of these places on the surface have like, they could have a reputation just based on no knowledge whatsoever, like no research whatsoever. So when I think about the Galapagos, one thing I'd immediately think of, all of the great things you mentioned, the diversity of the wildlife and everything. But then I also think, wow, it's got to be expensive because it's a place everybody wants to go. And, you know, it's probably one of those places you have to make reservations a year in advance or something. And it's like, that's just me being uninformed, right? Like, what is the, you know, are those myths? Are those truths? Like, what is the reality behind, like, if people are coming out of this and they're like, no, yeah, Lyn got me fired up, I actually want to plan a trip to the Galapagos. What's your best advice?
I mean, the Galapagos, I would say, and certainly the very first time I went, we saved up and we decided, hey, this might be the only time we go to the Galapagos. So let's do it properly. Let's go on one of these lovely small boat cruises. They are expensive. Of course they are. You know, you might have a guide to every 8 people, and you on these boats, you move around between the islands. You're visiting several islands over maybe 5 days, with at least 2 shore excursions a day, and lots of opportunities for snorkeling, etc. And that is the best way to do it. You see a lot. It's a wonderful experience, and it ain't going to be cheap. Having said that, you know, this is obviously one of the reasons it's a bucket list destination, so it could be something you save up for. If you do want to do it cheaper, though, you can take a chance on just going out there and seeing if you can get a discounted place on one of these boat trips. That does happen. So if you've got the time, you can absolutely do that. The other thing you can do is, what's increasingly popular is land-based stays. So there are now basically bed and breakfasts, you know, simple guest houses, simple camps that you can stay in on a land-based stay. And then you can do excursions by boat, which I must stress you must do. You shouldn't go all that way and just stay somewhere. You'll see some sea lions, you'll see some nice birds, you know, probably see a giant tortoise. But to really, really appreciate the Galapagos, you need to go and visit several islands. But yeah, if you really want to go and budget's a factor, then go and do a land-based one, as I say, staying in, you know, what's basically a family-run guest house.
Got it. Okay, awesome. Thanks for the background on that. Okay, what do you got next for us?
Well, I'm not long back from Western Australia and somewhere I dreamt of going for years. And so an area called the Kimberley, and which is sometimes dubbed one of the world's last great wildernesses. And we drove what's called the Gibb River Road. And so my reason why I think you should go in 2026 is that there are rumours, and they are only rumours, that the Gibb River Road may be sealed within a few years. You know, some people are saying that there's talk that by 2030 it may be sealed. Now, I've looked into this. I can't find any evidence of this, and I hope it isn't. But at the moment, it's a dirt road, and it goes for, I think, 660 kilometres through the Kimberley. And it's absolutely amazing. You need a 4-wheel drive if you're going to do it. You absolutely need a 4-wheel drive, which of course you can hire there. And so you could either take a 4-wheel drive car or a 4-wheel drive camper van. It's as you go along, as I say, it's nearly all dirt road. You're going through bush. It's very underpopulated, very underdeveloped. You might see another vehicle every 20 or 30 minutes. As you go past, you kind of wave. And so you've got this place more or less to yourself. And it's got all sorts of vegetation as you go along. I think officially most of it is what's called tropical savanna. And it has extreme climate. So in the it has basically 2 seasons, the wet season and the dry season, and you can only visit it during the dry season, which is our summer, in the Northern Hemisphere. So that's from May to October, really, it's accessible. And the rest of the year is the wet season, and it really is wet. It absolutely pours down. And the people who are still there living on cattle stations or tourist camps, the only way they can get anything, get supplies, get mail is by air, by small planes going in. So there are plenty. There's any sort of ranch type places out there, anything, have their own airstrips. So it's a kind of land of extremes. So you can imagine, if you can, that you've got this red dirt road and red earth either side. In some places you've got quite a lot of trees. In others you might get termite mounds, like hundreds and hundreds of them. In other places you might get it relatively open. And back in the 19th century, it became an area it was opened up to cattle farmers. So, huge ranches were created, millions of hectares with cattle. But these days, there's only a few working cattle ranches left, but a couple of them you can stay on, and you can have like the full-on Yellowstone experience of staying on a proper cattle ranch. Where they have to round up the cattle, there's no roads, so other than the main road through, so they have to use either horses or helicopters to round up, or quad bikes to round up the cattle. It's known for having wonderful gorges, and so there's various rock outcrops, so it's got some wonderful gorges and cascades, waterfalls, swimming holes. But with the swimming holes, you have to be very careful. You have to make sure they're safe, because you might get saltwater crocodiles. And despite the name, saltwater crocodiles, they are found inland and in fresh water. But there's always knowledge. I mean, I was advised to go to the visitor centre in Broome before we headed off. And the woman in there, straight away, I said, "Oh, we're doing the Give Her a Road. We're told to come for any advice, up-to-date advice." And she said, "Right." And she got a map, my map, circled the place and said, "There's a salty being seen there, a big one. Don't go in the water." So, okay. So if they know of a salty, a saltwater crocodile, then they will warn you. There'll be a warning sign, or they'll make sure people know. And then you get freshwater crocodiles who don't tend to attack and are very benign. They are found. You just ignore them. Obviously, you've got kangaroos and wallabies, lots of bird life, dingoes. I saw my first dingoes. And in some places, feral cattle from the ones who escaped from the roundups. And then to stay, there's several former ranches or cattle ranches or in some cases still working ranches that you can stay at. They'll have their own campgrounds and they'll probably have some sort of accommodation, whether in safari tents or old homesteads or cabins. And then you can also just do free camping, bush camping. You see some people camping near waterholes, but not too near, just in case. So it's a proper rugged experience. You're off grid. And if you're staying at one of these old cattle stations, there might be Wi-Fi in the main homestead, your main lodge bit. Other than that, you're completely off grid when you're there. So I hired a satellite phone, and it's good to have some spare food and drink with you just in case. But it is, like I say, a true adventure. And we only had 4 nights actually on it. So we drove west to east, Broome to Kununurra, and which some people say is the best way to go, but you can do it the other way around, east to west. We only had 4 nights. I would recommend having at least 6 or 7. In fact, the more nights you can spare, the better. Because then you're going to be at places, beautiful places. You can be there first thing in the morning, if you are camping somewhere very gorgeous. So do allow time. If I was doing it again, I'd have at least double the time there, at least. And just really enjoy it.
I mean, I love a good road trip, and it sounds like you've got a lot of room to roam here. I mean, I did a quick sort of Google search, and I see one website saying the Kimberley offers 420,000 square kilometers of wilderness to explore. I mean, that's
this is it. It is vast, absolutely vast. And I must say as well, if you're somebody who's not confident driving a 4-wheel drive or whatever, you don't want to do that yourself. What you can still do to enjoy the Kimberley is obviously, you can go to somewhere like Broome or to Kununurra, and which is another really interesting town. They're both super interesting towns where, again, I wish I'd spent more time. Lots to see and do. And, they're very kind of quiet, very safe, but lots of everything from indigenous history through to in Broome, you've got the pearling history, and it's still the modern day pearling, and you can go and see the world's biggest pearl farm, farming freshwater pearls. Wonderful sunsets there, wonderful food. So there's so much you can do in them. And of course, what you can then do is arrange excursions or do a day's hire, to go into the Kimberley and get some of this magical scenery, without doing that whole 660 kilometer drive.
No, that sounds amazing. Before we move on, I'll just highlight, I think that sometimes when people are prioritizing destinations, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but there's many ways to do it. I mean, one way when you're looking at like bucket list experiences, let's say, is thinking about, I always encourage people to consider, if you're younger and there's certain physical challenges you want to do those sooner than later, because the reality is we all get older. But also when it comes to like this type of example, you mentioned that rumors, swirling, we don't know, you couldn't find anything substantial, but that they may shut down this road. And that could be another sort of urgency type of thing to reprioritize your bucket list. Like if there's something like you're looking at this and you're like, wow, no, I want to go. Like if they're going to shut that down, we have to get there in the next few years. There's that. And then there's also we're opening it up, right? Like there's like, this is a dirt road now. I'm talking about X, Y, or Z destination, nothing specific, but, it's, next year it's going to be a 4-lane paved highway. So,
exactly,
get there before the masses do,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So there's all these kind of ways to look at it, but these things can drive your decisions if you're looking at them from a meta perspective and you're thinking about a life of travel and you're like, well, I do want to prioritize. There's lots I want to see, so many things I want to do.
Yeah.
These places are ever changing as well. So just something to keep in mind.
You're absolutely right, Jason. And because things do change. And there's no point going somewhere where, as you say, either physically you can't do it anymore, or where it really has changed, and so you're disappointed because suddenly it is over touristed or it's whatever. And so I do think for some of these world special places, you've really got to try and prioritize them, and that is somewhere I'd go now. It's really special.
Cool. I mean, it sounds like an amazing, and I just was scanning through some of the pictures while you were talking I like to get the visual. And, wow, looks incredible.
You see, water crossings. You drive through water, and apparently, and the first time you do it, because you sometimes see somebody then come to their first water crossing, like a ford, and they've got to drive through it, and just those become so much fun. It's wonderful proper adventure.
Nice. All right, I'm excited to hear the next one.
Right. Okay, let's go to another part again. Western Uganda. So, and this is for wildlife. This is for gorillas, chimpanzees, and other primates. And I've been wanting to go for ages. Well, in fact, I had been to Uganda way back, backpacking in the 80s. But this time, I was doing it in a little bit more style, but also I was so intrigued to see how the gorilla tourism had come on since then, because it was almost non-existent when I was there back then. They were just introducing it. And as you may know, gorillas, they need to be habituated. They need to get used to humans. And the tourism has been a wonderful thing for mountain gorillas. So all of the world's mountain gorillas are found in one relatively small area. It's Uganda, Rwanda, and DRC, mostly in the Virunga Mountains. And they were down to really worrying low numbers. Some said they got down to as few as 300, but now they are well up, and they were actually doing a census when I was there, and I don't believe they've published the final figures yet, but Uganda and Rwanda were doing a census of the gorillas, and then they were going to estimate the ones in DRC. So the numbers are definitely well into 4 figures now. And Uganda has been a particular success story. And so I revisited Bwindi National Park, which, as I say, I went to first of all in the late 1980s. It now has over 40% of the world's mountain gorillas. Numbers are increasing all the time. Lots and lots of family groups. They're all monitored. They're all known. All the gorillas have names. So there's a number of ways you can go gorilla trekking there. It is a bucket list experience. It is expensive. They find out how fit you are. You mentioned fitness, which is a key thing, of course, when one is traveling. And I do get a lot of people ask me, have they left it too late in their lives to go and see mountain gorillas, because they're worried about their fitness levels. Because the gorillas live on very steep slopes. They live in the mountains. Well, first of all, I would say the good thing about Uganda is that in Bwindi, they're not in such high mountains as for instance, in parts of Rwanda. But also, what they do is they suss out on arrival, or sometimes in advance, what your fitness level is. And they will then try and work out, they will put you in a group according to your fitness levels. So the ones who really are fit, and, want to have a proper trek, they'll be taken to see a group that's probably going to involve several hours trekking through mud. Whereas in my case, I was put in the softies group, the softies oldies group, and it was quite a blessing. We saw our family of gorillas in, it was well under an hour. It was probably more like 30-35 minutes. And
wow. Okay.
it was enough to be an adventure, you weren't disappointed, you thought you'd done a bit of an effort. Your heartbeat had gone up. but it was a real shock. And they actually said, we were lucky because what they do is they know where the gorillas finished off the night before, where they've nested the night before. They have trackers out all the time. And then they send out trackers again ahead of you in the morning. In this case, the gorillas were much closer than they had been the night before, so they'd actually come towards the drop-off spot that we were in. So anyway, it was still incredibly magical. Had this magical up to an hour with the gorillas. It's really spine-tingling. It's incredible, as anybody who has done it says, and it goes so quickly. So that's wonderful. But I want to make a case for chimpanzees. And also, if you can't afford the gorillas and you're in that part of the world, going to see chimpanzees is so much more affordable. So chimpanzees they do so much more. And so with a gorilla, they hang out, they'll sort of be lolling about a bit, eat a bit. You might get a little bit of action with one moving, coming down a tree or going up a tree or, getting some food. But most of the time when you see them, they're just hanging out and that's it. With chimpanzees, it's like having a whole load of adolescents around you very often. And chimpanzee numbers are doing really, really well in Uganda. And so I went to Kibale National Park. When you're there, by the way, in Western Uganda, they pronounce K as a CH, ch. So you can say Kibale National Park, which is how it's spelled, or you can say Chibale. And so Kibale National Park or Kibale National Park calls itself primate capital of the world, self-dubbed. But probably right, because it has 13 different species and it has around 1,500 chimpanzees. And again, they know where these chimpanzees are. You're not 100% guaranteed to see them, but you're pretty high, it's like 98% or something. If you're unlucky, they might just be high in a tree and you have to crane your neck a lot. If you're luckier, there'll be a lot of chimp action going on around you. They might be on the ground. I had so many chimp encounters, including walking behind some on the ground, having one sit in the fork of a kind of low tree, just staring at me, 10 yards away. And the guides, again, they know these chimpanzees. They usually know their names. They know who they're related to, their characteristics. And it's wonderful. There's lots of researchers around as well. And it's great to find out all about this behavior. And, how, it might be two males fighting over a female. And, or it might be, a mother and its child and what they're doing. And, there might be a bit of fun going on with some younger ones playing around. They're very active and there's so many stories to tell and they're just absolutely fascinating. And it's something that you can just turn up and usually get onto it. So, for instance, at Chibale, apparently as well, one tip always is that they tend to be busier in the mornings. Everybody goes in the morning for the morning excursions. And they said actually in the afternoons they're really quiet. So if somebody goes in the afternoon, even if they've just pitched up that day, they're likely to get on one of these guided walks to go and see the chimpanzees. And absolutely fascinating, and met quite a few travellers there who hadn't really known beforehand about it, didn't know what to expect, but were completely blown away with the experience.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment.
This episode is brought to you by Fandango. People say fans are too distracted these days, but the truth is, when a great movie hits the screen, you show up, you stay glued, invested, part of the story. And without fans like you, there'd be no cinema magic, no shared moments. So head to Fandango.com to get tickets, stream, or rent or buy top movies and series. Fandango loves fans.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Now, back to the show. That's great. Yeah, with the gorilla story too, it's just a great reminder that, yeah, sometimes tourism actually can save something. It doesn't just have to destroy everything, right? Like in the case of the gorillas you meant. Yeah, it just demonstrates that, yes, the tourism dollars can be put to good use.
Totally. You know, tourism is credited for saving the mountain gorilla, for these numbers increasing year on year on year, and that money is going out to the communities around. You know, you see schools. It's creating jobs and giving opportunities that wouldn't have been there otherwise. In fact, it's such a success story in Uganda that it's almost they could do with more land now. This is what they've got to deal with now. Can they? Is there any way they can expand these areas? And it's the same with the chimpanzees. The chimpanzees were seen as nuisances before that could raid crops. But again, now there's so much interest in the chimpanzees. I could do a whole podcast just on some of these places, honestly. But again, you know, people are
Lyn. I encourage you to do. I encourage you to do that one. Top 10 places to see primates.
Yeah,
there you go. No, that's great. I mean, I can see your fascination for wildlife and hear your passion for it. And looking at the list too. I mean, well, maybe you weren't on the hunt for saltwater crocodiles. But,
no.
We'll throw them in there just for fun. We've spanned multiple continents already. Where are you taking us next?
Let's go Middle East now and to Saudi Arabia, and in particular to Alula.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Surprising, because this can be a controversial destination.
It can be a controversial destination. I hope you're okay with that, Jason. I'm
just here to, share perspectives. I'd love to hear your perspective on the choice, and yes.
For anyone who doesn't know, Saudi Arabia has really opened up and really changed in the last few years. This process started before the pandemic, so back around 2018. And there is something called Vision 2030, by which time tourism and various other industries are to have been established in Saudi Arabia. Women have been driving again since 2018. Women are being encouraged into the workplace, and there are targets for businesses to have a percentage of women working for them. And many businesses have completely blown that anyway. With tour guides, rawis, or storytellers, in many places, they've got a target of at least 50% being women. So it is very, very different. Artists have been welcomed back. There's an arts district outside Riyadh, Jax. There is all sorts of things happening, and a real energy and a real feeling of, pride, actually, I find, with the young people. And it's a young country. They've got a very young population. And there's a real feeling of pride in their country, in their culture, and in the changes that are happening. It's a really, really interesting time to go. I've been a few times in the last few years, but finally this year I got to Alula, somewhere I'd been wanting to go for many, many years. So Alula is a city and valley. In fact, it's a huge area, the size of Wales. It's an oasis city, so there's an oasis through a valley, with an old town that had been abandoned but is now being renovated again. and then the more modern town as well. But what Alula was particularly famous for is this was a very old trading route. Many civilizations were based here, came through here. And it's particularly known for the Nabateans. And many people, I'm sure, listening will have been to Petra or hope to go to Petra one day in Jordan. And that was the capital of the Nabateans. But in Alula, that was on the main trading route for the Nabateans. The Nabateans were traders, and this was their main trading hub. So, for instance, there is a canyon, a Sikh, in Alula, in an area called Hegra, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and where a lot of these Nabatean artifacts and remains are. It is believed, I was told that there were more than 100 languages represented on the walls of the Sikh, because you can see all these different languages and all these different signs of other civilizations that pass through. So really important trading hub. It's got some incredible kind of rock cut tombs, as I say, very reminiscent of being in Petra, but spread out over a much bigger area. But it hasn't got the crowds that Petra can have. Jordan isn't having the best time at the moment. It's been a bit quieter, but obviously Petra was getting really over touristed, whereas Hegra is nothing like that yet. So you can visit these Nabatean sites at Hegra and on a guided tour with one of these female storytellers who come from locally, and school groups visit it, etc., etc. So many stories to tell. But one of the fascinating things is as well that archaeologists are working there. There are new discoveries almost every day, coming along, and they are learning more and more and more about the Nabatean civilization and about other civilizations. So it's fascinating to be part of something where there are working archaeologists and where all these discoveries are being made. But as well as that, there are incredible landscapes around there. So I usually hate to compare somewhere to somewhere else, but scenery-wise, it was a bit like bits of Utah and USA Four Corners mixed with bits of Namibia, mixed with the Kimberley. So, you've got desert and you've got incredible rocky outcrops, and then this large oasis in the middle. There's a lot of work going on to regenerate the area and lives for the people there. So there's agri-tourism in the oasis area and a farmer's market, and the food is tremendous. You're eating all sorts of food that is grown there in this valley. So wonderful camps and places to stay. Again, it's not cheap. That's the only thing I will say. It is expensive, but there is accommodation for all levels. There's lots and lots of activities. It's a dark sky area, and it's believed to be one of the top ones in the world. And there's going to be a lot of work there to put in huge telescopes and build that up. As a visitor experience. You can go hot air ballooning, brilliant trekking and hiking, brilliant cycling and dirt bikes, that sort of thing. On the wildlife front, obviously an interest of mine, they are regenerating a particular national park, the Shiran. It's huge, size of Greater London. And they have been replanting different plants. There's a lot of work going on with that. They've been reintroducing all sorts of wildlife like gazelles, ibex, and they have a breeding program to breed Arabian leopards, the rarest type of leopard in the world. And the idea is that within a few years, they will be reintroducing the Arabian leopards into this reserve. They're very shy animals, so the chance of seeing them will probably be quite small. But again, it's a wonderful success story of bringing nature back. And so, yeah, so much to see and do there. And everybody I know who's been has just absolutely fallen in love with the place.
Okay. I never heard of an Arabian leopard. I didn't even know that they
Yeah, there's
existed.
only
That's really cool.
the rarest and smallest leopard, but they are absolutely beautiful. The breeding program's going really well. They've got this in 2 centres, and they're having cubs, and bring them along. And next, they've got to then train them. They've got to make sure that the cubs don't get used to humans, and they've got to train them obviously to hunt and so on. But yeah, it's a really inspiring project. But as I say, the whole area is there's a real sense of discovery there, and so much to see and do. But then you're also getting exposure to a lot of culture, a lot of history, a lot of modern day culture. People are very friendly. It's very easy to talk to people, and so it works there on so many different levels.
I want to respect your time because I know we're coming up on an hour almost already. It's flying by because we
Okay.
travel.
I won't spend so long then on the next one or two.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to, like I said, respect your time. So we can stop at our 5th one if you want, or if you think you can.
Shall I just mention 2 incredibly briefly? Because one of them is again another one that perhaps is lesser known and doesn't get talked about so much, and that's Guyana, which is in South America. And I find even a lot of people, when I say to them Guyana, they don't even know where it is. They ask if it's in Africa. No, it's in South America. English speaking. And they found oil in 2019. And so there's a lot going on there, as you can imagine. And so it's fascinating seeing it, because the main city, Georgetown, has gone from this sleepy town into somewhere that is changing very rapidly, with new buildings, new roads all the time. But they're going to be using some of this money to restore the old heart of it, the old centre, the old heritage buildings. And it's waterfront. So lots of good work going on there as well. And there's Caribbean coast, so they are going to be putting in some resorts along there. So they've got plans of that type. But those aren't the reasons to go. The reason to go is for the interior. So it is the most forested country in the world. Over 85% of it is forest. And the other unique thing about it is that the tourism, once you're away from the coast, once you're in the interior, all the tourism is community led. So the interior has indigenous communities. They have lodges, or they have just their villages where they've opened up accommodation within them. There are very few roads, no real roads. You get into the interior either by boat or small plane, or combination of them. And so you feel it's like going back in time to another age, where you arrive by boat, you go along a river, and then pull up at a village, or or a small eco lodge, which is actually owned by and run by a local community. And they've been very, very clever and careful in trying to learn from other places around the world, trying to learn from each other. And so that the money really does go into the local communities, schools and hospitals are built. It means that it keeps the young people in the villages, because then there are jobs for them, rather than going off and, working in some crummy job somewhere. And it's kind of known as Land of the Giants, because it's got some incredible wildlife, such as giant river otters, giant anteaters, jaguars. It's got huge spiders. It's got the largest freshwater fish in the world, which is heavily protected. It's also got one of the world's great wonders, the most amazing waterfall I've ever seen, which is Kaitor Falls. And I've been at Kaitor Falls when there's nobody else there except for the people I'm with. So incredibly special destination, and one that I think within a few years, when we talk about timings of things, I do think within a few years, particularly because it's going to have more of a focus on it now because of the oil, it could change. And yeah, it's had 60 years of independence, which they're celebrating in 2026. But as I say, the main reason is to see it as it is now. And I'm thrilled to see that they are very aware that they want to keep it. They want the communities to benefit. They want to keep tourism as it is. We'll see. But certainly a very special place. Last but not least, somewhere very different, Alberta in Canada. A lot of people know it for the Rockies. That is magical. I was lucky enough to go again back in March, and it was off season. It was very much off season, and I also can say it's a wonderful time to be there. I had snow and sunshine, all sorts of weather, but very few crowds, very few tourists. Places like Jasper, where they had the terrible fires in 2024. They were actually talking to me there, the locals, saying we want tourists back, and we want them to come, year round. We want them to come out of season as well. That's our livelihoods, and that's what keeps everything going. And also, because there had been fewer tourists there after the fires, a lot of the wildlife has become lots bolder again, so you see it more. And so apparently that's still the situation. So again, a good time to go. I also went to near Edmonton to Métis Crossing. If you don't know who the Métis people were, they originated from when the fur traders who went into Canada married with the Cree women. So you had fur traders from France and places like Scotland who met and married with the local Cree, and their offspring, they developed their own culture, their own language, and they are now one of the recognised Indigenous groups of Canada. And there's a wonderful place called Métis Crossing, only an hour or two from Edmonton, where you can stay, you can camp or stay in a hotel lodge. They've got buffalo there. They've got, if it's winter, they've got snowshoeing, all sorts of activities, stargazing, and you're learning about this little known Métis culture, which is absolutely fascinating.
What a diverse list. I mean, if you got one more, let's squeeze it in.
Oh, right? No, let's leave it there. No. Okay, I'm going to talk too much. Fine. Let's leave it there, or I'll be talking for another half hour.
No, well, that's why you're here. I mean, I love how in depth you go with each of these destinations, and I love that we can cover so many different aspects of it. You really paint the picture for the different things that people can do, and also, I think it's great because it appeals to everybody has different interests as travelers on the ground. This was a very diverse list. Are you sure you don't have one more on there? I mean,
no, because I know.
All right, fair enough.
No, I was only going to say about Europe and the Balkans and everything, but no, let's leave it. We can do it no.
All right, I'm gonna say the Balkans as a sort of we'll slot that in at 7th, just a quick mention. But if people want to see what ends up making the Wanderlust list, of course, we'll link up to that. Some of the behind the scenes destinations that Lyn is fighting for as the as everybody's trying to decide what goes on these. I love too that. I mean, I'm like the same way. I'm not a professional number 1 selling publication, but I do take these lists seriously when I put them together. I'm like, all right, what's going to be on the list? Like, it's all subjective, of course.
Of course it is. But I think you may have realised there's a hell of a lot of work goes into them. We do all fight the corner for different destinations and for the reason why. So, we take it really, really seriously. And it causes so much debate. So, so we'll be publishing it probably New Year's Day. That's the plan at the moment online on wanderlustmagazine.com. There will be 26 places to go in 2026. We'll also have a best of the rest. So there will be the ones in there that haven't, that we've really, no, they've got to be in, who haven't made the real actual 26. Yeah, and then it will also be in our magazine that comes out in January, and it will be on our Wanderlust Off the Page podcast out in January. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I did want to ask you about, AI, either in AI and media, AI and travel. I'm just curious, any trends you've noticed, any things that you think are going to impact travelers or that you're experimenting with in the coming year of 2026?
It's going to be such a powerful tool, isn't it? And of course, we are looking to see how we use it. And I think it will be able to help people with trip planning, for instance. It might be able to help, because we've got an incredible archive of material, and we're looking at ways of harnessing that. So it will be good. I'd say at the moment it isn't there. When we are writing ourselves, when I'm writing something, and also when we're editing the work that we've commissioned, we check it against AI, and it's still so error prone. You can't really trust it at the moment. So I think, like a lot of things, I think that going forward as well, what will be important, I think people will want things like curated lists more than ever, where they know there's been that first-hand and human interaction into it. So something like our good to go list, I think, would be even more important than ever, because although AI would be able to generate something, it's, can you trust it? People,
it's not the same as Lyn being there, walking around and checking it out
and getting a different,
it is,
getting a different take on it and all the rest of it. So, and looking for the stories there. So, it's so fascinating seeing it. It's completely blown online. It's completely blown SEO out the water, hasn't it? But let's wait and see. Yeah, could be a path for good.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, really, truly appreciate your time coming again this year with all these great recommendations. Again, what a diverse list. I appreciate giving us the in-depth background on each of these locations. We'll link up to all the stuff in the show notes. And thank you again, Lyn. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Yeah, brilliant catching up.
Likewise. Take care.
And you. Bye.
There you have it. Once again, thanks to Lyn Hughes for stopping by the show, and the folks at Wanderlust Magazine. You can find that final list in the show notes. The one that really captured my attention, by the way, well, I'll tell you in a moment. Let me just remind you, first of all, zerototravel.com/newsletter. Sign up over there so you can join the community off the pod and keep in touch. And yes, the one is the road trip, the 660-kilometer dirt road through Australia. I mean, that, the idea that again, couldn't find anything to sort of justify that, but even the suggestion that this road may be paved, within the next 5 years. I mean, these destinations are constantly evolving, as we discussed in this show. And for that reason, I mean, it's good to take you could take a look at the destinations you want to visit, but to step back and take a fresh look, where is the destination at this moment in time right now? Are there parts of a country or a place that perhaps should be elevated in terms of, prioritization, and they should be visited sooner because there are some big changes coming, or some of the other reasons we discussed today? Something to think about coming out of this destination themed episode. And I want to leave you, before I let you go, I found this little poem from Dorothea McKellar, from the Poems of Dorothea McKellar, referring to Australia, since we were honing in on that here at the end of the episode. Let me read this to you really quickly to send you off on your way. She said, "I love a sunburnt country, a land of sweeping plains, of ragged mountain ranges, of droughts and flooding rains. I love her far horizons. I love her jewel sea, her beauty and her terror, the wide brown land for me." There's an exclamation point at the end. That's why I went up there. Anyway, I thought that was nice. So Thanks for listening. Excited to kick off another year with you, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.